My husband cried when our baby was born, but then I saw the DNA report he tried to burn. I've replayed that moment so many times. It's almost surreal now. The way Noah's shoulders shook with sobs when he held our daughter for the first time. His face was crumpled, eyes overflowing, lips whispering something so soft I couldn't make it out. I was exhausted, my body numb, heart full, and when I saw him like that, I thought this is it. This is the dream. This is what forever looks like. I didn't know then that sometimes people cry not from love, but from fear, from guilt, from the sheer weight of a secret so dark, it eats them from the inside out. But back then, I was still blissfully blind. And I need to take you back, years back, to explain how deeply this betrayal would cut. Noah and I met during our junior year of college at a mutual friend's game night. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He tagged along with his roommate last minute. I remember walking in, arms full of snacks, and catching him laughing over a stupid card game. His laugh wasn't charming, not at first. It was loud, slightly obnoxious. But when he looked at me and smiled, something inside me fluttered. He was the kind of guy who took up space, not in an overbearing way, but in the way of someone completely at ease with himself. Meanwhile, I was the type who melted into the corners of rooms. I kept my voice low, my hair tied back, my opinions mostly to myself. But that night, Noah saw me. Really saw me. He guessed my favorite book within 10 minutes, The Secret Garden. He teased me for it, called it the introvert's fairy tale, and I rolled my eyes but couldn't stop smiling. We ended up talking all night, long after everyone had gone. I don't even remember what we talked about. I just remember feeling like I could finally exhale. We started dating a few weeks later. He showed up at my dorm with a tattered copy of Pride and Prejudice annotated with his own ridiculous commentary in the margins. "I thought you might like my version better," he said. I kept that book. I still have it. Our relationship moved fast, but it never felt rushed. He was attentive in a way that felt rare, always listening, always noticing. When I mentioned I hated lilies because they reminded me of funerals, he stopped buying them for me. When I got sick during finals, he stayed up all night to keep me company, even though he had exams too. When he proposed on our favorite hiking trail 2 years after graduation, I said yes before he finished asking. We got married the following spring in a small garden ceremony. I wore my late mother's lace wedding dress, something old, something borrowed. He cried when I walked down the aisle, cried during the vows, cried during our first dance. I used to think his tears meant he felt things deeply. Now I think maybe he was always trying to wash something away. The first few years of marriage were quiet, beautiful. We weren't rich, but we were content. I worked as a copy editor for a small publishing house, and Noah was climbing the ladder in commercial real estate. We ate frozen pizza on Friday nights and dreamed about owning a cabin in Vermont someday. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. The only thing missing was a baby. We started trying a year after the wedding. At first, it was fun, spontaneous, exciting, full of hope. But month after month, that hope turned into heartbreak. Every negative test felt like a slap. I tracked my cycle obsessively, read every forum, took every supplement. I cried in bathroom stalls, praying to a God I wasn't even sure I believed in anymore. Noah tried to be supportive, but he always said the same thing. It'll happen when it's supposed to. It didn't feel like enough. There were moments, tiny, whisper quiet moments, when I'd catch him looking distant, almost detached. Like he was watching a movie he wasn't fully invested in. But I always brushed it off. Maybe he was tired. Maybe I was being paranoid. Then one morning, nearly 3 years into trying, I threw up while brushing my teeth. It happened so suddenly, I dropped my toothbrush into the sink and just stared at my reflection, trembling. I took a test on a whim. And there they were. 2 pink lines. I didn't scream or jump or even cry. I just stood there, staring at it. After so many months of disappointment, I'd stopped expecting anything. But there it was. Life. When I told Noah, he looked at me like I had just handed him the universe. He dropped to his knees, kissed my stomach, and whispered, Finally. The pregnancy wasn't easy. I had morning sickness well into the second trimester and developed gestational hypertension, but he never missed a single doctor's appointment. He painted the nursery himself, built the crib, rubbed my feet every night. And then, on a crisp October morning, our daughter arrived. 8 pounds, 2 ounces. A head full of dark curls, just like Noah's. When the nurse handed her to him, something in him cracked open. He clutched her like she was oxygen, like letting go would kill him. I'd never seen him cry like that. And I thought, this man loves us more than anything in the world. It wasn't until 6 months later that everything began to unravel. It started small. Little things. He started working late, not unusual, but the frequency picked up. He was suddenly very protective of his phone, always keeping it face down. I caught him once staring at our daughter's face with an expression I couldn't read, like he was studying her too carefully, looking for something. Then one night, after putting the baby down, I came downstairs to find Noah in the living room. He jumped when I walked in. The fireplace was lit, which was strange because it was warm outside, and he looked like he'd been crying. There was a folded piece of paper in his hands. I saw the corner catch fire just as I walked in. I asked what it was. He stammered something about old work documents and allergies. I didn't believe him. After he went to bed, I fished the half-burned paper out of the fireplace. The edges were charred, the ink faded, but not enough. Not enough to hide what it was. A paternity test. His name, my name, our daughter's name, and the words. Probability of paternity. 0.00%. My breath caught. The room spun. The paper shook in my hands as everything I knew, everything I trusted, collapsed like a dying star. That night, I stood over our daughter's crib, my tears falling silently as she slept. I whispered, I carried you. I birthed you. You're mine. But who was he? Who was this man sleeping upstairs? And why would he get a paternity test? Unless he already suspected something. Or, unless he knew something I didn't. That night was the last time I ever looked at Noah with love. The woman he married died that day. The woman who replaced her. She was made of fury. And she was going to find out everything. When I read those 3 words, probability of paternity, 0.00%, I didn't scream. I didn't faint or throw things or wake him up to demand answers. I just stood there, frozen, paralyzed, like my body had gone offline and my mind was trying to reboot reality. The page in my hand crackled from the burn marks, my thumb smudging the ashes clinging to its edge. This was supposed to be our child. Our miracle. So why the hell was he secretly testing her DNA? And more importantly, why did it confirm she wasn't his? I didn't cheat. I knew I hadn't. The only man I'd been with in years was Noah. There was no drunken night, no gray area, no repressed memory to search for. I remembered every minute of our struggle to conceive. Every scheduled baby-making session. Every damn doctor's appointment. I had been faithful. So how could this be true? Something wasn't right. Something was horribly, impossibly wrong. I hid the paper in my jewelry box under the felt lining, the place I used to keep Noah's anniversary notes and the bracelet he gave me on our honeymoon. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I woke up early, pretending everything was normal. I handed him coffee, kissed his cheek, and smiled while he packed up for work. I cradled our daughter, my heart aching with confusion. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to doubt my own memory. But the numbers didn't lie. I needed to know where the lies were coming from. So I started watching. And digging. The first thing I checked was our medical records. I logged into the patient portal and found everything, the blood work, the ultrasounds, the fertility tracking. It all aligned. There were no records of artificial insemination, no donor programs, nothing unusual. Then I remembered something. 6 months before I got pregnant, Noah had insisted we take a break from all the fertility treatments. He said I was becoming obsessed. He said, We need to just breathe. Just be married again. No more tests or thermometers or ovulation alarms. Let's just relax and see what happens naturally. I agreed. But now I wondered if that break was when he did something unnatural. So I pulled our insurance statements from that time, and there it was. A visit to a private urology clinic. His visit. One that he never told me about. I called the clinic, pretending to be his assistant. I'm confirming his upcoming appointment, I said, chipper and rehearsed. Just wanted to check what the last visit was for. The woman on the other end replied casually. Just a repeat sperm analysis, same as before. My stomach dropped. He told me his results were normal, that it was likely me with the fertility issue. But apparently, he had been retesting, quietly, alone. Why? The only answer that made sense. He knew something was wrong. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I went through every message thread on our home laptop, the one he thought I never used. He always logged out of his accounts, but he forgot about the synced folder. And there, buried in a deleted Gmail draft, was the start of my unraveling. It was a message to someone saved as M. No phone number. Just an initial. The message said, I did the test like you said. You were right. I just don't know what to do now. She thinks this baby is mine. I don't even know what I'm supposed to feel anymore. That was dated 2 weeks after our daughter's birth. There were other drafts, too, unsent, emotional, panicked. He talked about not being able to look at me without feeling sick. About how everything was a lie. About how he wanted to burn it all down. But he never wrote who M was. I had no idea if it was a man or a woman, a friend or a lover. But they knew. They knew about the test. They pushed him to do it. And he trusted them more than me. That night, after Noah went to bed, I sat alone with our daughter. She was sleeping soundly on my chest, her little fingers curled against my collarbone. I stared at her face, the face I had memorized from the moment I laid eyes on it. She was mine. She had to be mine. I wasn't crazy. I knew she came from me. But then a sickening thought twisted in my gut like a knife. What if she wasn't? What if they switched embryos? What if someone tampered with the samples? What if Noah wasn't the only one keeping secrets? The next day, I made my own appointment at the lab. I handed over my daughter's saliva swab and mine. I didn't explain. I just wanted the results. When they arrived 2 weeks later, I locked myself in the bathroom and opened them with shaking hands. Probability of maternity: 99.9999%. I collapsed to the floor in tears. She was mine. My blood. My child. Noah may have doubted it, but I never would again. So the question became, if I never cheated, and she's mine, then whose DNA was used? And that's when the second betrayal came into focus. Because as I traced the insurance documents again, every appointment, every bill, something odd stood out. One fertility clinic visit I didn't remember ever attending. But I hadn't gone. He had. Noah had taken my medical ID, gone alone, and signed me up for a procedure labeled as gamete preservation and IVF consultation. My name was on the form. But my signature wasn't mine. And the contact number listed wasn't mine either. It belonged to a woman I knew very well. My sister, Melanie. My knees buckled. I couldn't breathe. Melanie had always been the spontaneous one, wild, reckless, beautiful in a way I could never compete with. Growing up, she was the one who crashed cars and broke hearts and got away with everything. Our parents adored her, even when she messed up. Especially when she messed up. We had drifted over the years. She moved to another city, fell off the map for a while, resurfaced at my baby shower acting sweeter than usual. I chalked it up to growth. But now I realized she had been at the hospital the day I delivered. She held my baby and smiled and said, "She looks just like you." Was that guilt? Or pride? I couldn't think. Couldn't speak. My hand shook as I called the clinic from a burner number and asked, "Hi, I'm trying to confirm a patient visit from 6 months ago. Name, Melanie Carter. I think she might have used my ID by mistake. The nurse hesitated. Yes. She came in with her partner. Noah Carter, right? I hung up. I threw up in the sink. Everything in my life, my marriage, my family, even my body, had been violated. My husband had conspired with my sister to steal an egg, implant it, and pass it off as our biological child. They used my own DNA against me. And they planned to raise the baby as mine and his, because she was mine. But she was never his. And he knew it. That's why he cried. That's why he burned the test. Because the secret they buried together was starting to rise. But they had no idea who I was. Not really. They thought I'd break. But I wasn't going to break. I was going to burn everything they loved. And I would make them watch. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Not a minute. I lay next to the man who had stolen the most sacred part of me, my trust, my body, my future, and pretended everything was normal. I watched the way he snored softly, arm draped over the edge of the bed like he hadn't turned my entire life into a lie. I had always believed heartbreak would come in one explosive moment, a slap, a scream, a door slamming. But mine came in silence, like water seeping into the cracks of a house before the walls cave in. The realization that Noah had gone behind my back and used my own egg to create a child with my sister. It changed something fundamental in me. It didn't just hurt. It rewrote me. He hadn't cheated. He had engineered a betrayal so intimate, so invasive, that it blurred the lines between love and theft. Melanie, my sister, had always lived like rules were optional. She borrowed my clothes without asking, flirted with my boyfriends, crashed on my couch after nights out. But I never thought she would do something this evil. How do you even begin to process the fact that your child was created through deceit? That while you thought you were building a family, your husband and sister were plotting behind your back? My mind ran circles every second of the day. Why had they done this? Did Noah know he was infertile and just couldn't accept it? Was Melanie the donor? Or just the accomplice? And most of all, did either of them ever intend to tell me the truth? I couldn't confront them, not yet. Confrontation would give them time to spin lies, twist facts, and gaslight me into confusion. I needed proof, not just for myself, but for whatever storm was coming next. Legal, emotional, custodial. So I began building my case. Step 1. Duplicate everything. I took photos of the half-burnt paternity report and saved copies on multiple flash drives. I made screen recordings of the email drafts he had written to M. I printed out insurance statements, patient logs, and even requested a notarized verification from the clinic that Melanie had signed in under my name. Step 2. Act like nothing had changed. I played the doting wife, cooked dinners, sent him sweet texts. I even let him take me on a date night, just so I could record his fingerprints on a wine glass to match against the documents later, if needed. I started leaving a baby monitor on in the living room when I went upstairs, not for our daughter, but to record conversations when Noah thought he was alone. And that's how I caught him on the phone one Thursday night. He was pacing, voice low, angry. I told you it was a mistake. She wasn't supposed to find anything. No, Melanie, I burned it. I don't care, it's done. Her name. Clear as day. I copied the audio file onto 3 drives. The next day, I called a lawyer. I didn't even know what I was asking for at first. Custody? Divorce? Fraud? I don't know, I said, hands shaking. All I know is they used my body without consent. The lawyer, a calm woman named Sandra, sat very still as I explained everything. And when I was done, she said, "You realize what they did may qualify as medical identity fraud and potentially reproductive coercion." I blinked. "That's a thing?" "It is now," she said. "And we're going to make sure a judge sees it that way." But it wasn't just about the law. It wasn't just about punishing them. I wanted to destroy their reputation, their peace, their illusion of victory. I knew Melanie would be the weakest link, always had been. She was reckless, emotionally unstable, and addicted to attention. So I started sending her anonymous messages, photos of the clinic log sheet, a screen grab of the email Noah had never sent, the burned edges of the paternity test. She unraveled fast. First, she blocked the number. Then she started calling Noah more frequently. I heard him whispering in the kitchen at 2 a.m. one night. His voice was sharp, impatient. Get it together. You're going to ruin everything. Noah had no idea that the house was wired. Everything he said became another weapon in my hands. 3 weeks later, I made my move. It was a Sunday afternoon. Family brunch. I invited both of them. They didn't know the other was coming. When Melanie walked in and saw Noah at the table, she froze. I smiled. I acted clueless. Surprise. Family reunion, just like old times. Noah glanced at me, suspicious. You're okay with this? Why wouldn't I be? I said, placing our daughter in his arms. I mean, we're all family, right? Melanie sat like she was sitting on a grenade. Her hands trembled as she lifted her mimosa. To us? We toasted. They ate. I waited. Then I set my phone in the middle of the table and pressed play. It was the audio of Noah's phone call. The one where he said her name. The one where he admitted everything. Melanie dropped her glass. It shattered on the floor. Noah stood up so fast his chair fell backward. What is this? He barked. My voice was calm. I was done crying. It's my proof, I said. Of fraud. Of deceit. Of paternity tampering. Of everything. You're insane, he growled, trying to grab the phone. I picked it up first. No, I was in love. There's a difference. Melanie was sobbing now. It wasn't supposed to go this far, I swear. I turned to her, venom calm and surgical. You handed over my genetics like a party favor. You let him use my body without my consent. And then you smiled in my face while I raised a child you both used to cover your shame. She whimpered. I just wanted to help. Help? I hissed. You helped him steal me. Noah tried to speak, but I cut him off. Here's what's going to happen. I placed a thick envelope on the table. In this envelope are copies of everything: court documents, medical statements, DNA results, a full report prepared by Sandra Wallace, the best attorney in the city. If you so much as breathe in my direction again, every friend, employer, client, and news outlet in a 30-mile radius will get a copy. Noah's face went pale. You wouldn't. Oh, I would, I said softly. And I'll smile while doing it. They left the house 2 minutes later, separately, without a word to each other. I watched through the blinds as Noah slammed his car door and peeled out of the driveway. Melanie sat in her car for a full 10 minutes before driving away, tears streaking her mascara. That night, I stood over my daughter's crib again, just like the night I first found the DNA test. Only this time, I wasn't whispering in grief. I whispered in promise. I will protect you. I will raise you with truth. And I will make sure they never hurt us again. And I meant every word. They underestimated me. That was their first mistake. They thought because I was quiet, I was weak. Because I cried, I was broken. Because I'd been kind, I wouldn't fight back. They forgot what happens when a woman loses everything she built with love and realizes it was all a lie. After that brunch, I gave Noah exactly 3 days. 3 days to do the right thing. I sent him a message. Sign the papers. Give me full custody, or I will burn everything you care about to the ground. He didn't respond. So I kept my word. Step 1. Public humiliation. I didn't want revenge hidden in courtrooms or whispered in liars' offices. I wanted it loud. I wanted every lie, every betrayal, every secret to be spotlighted under the sun until the world saw what kind of man Noah truly was. So I began with his career. Noah worked in real estate development. Reputation mattered more than anything. He was lining up investors for a new project, something high profile, very public. All it took was one anonymous email to the local news with just the right evidence. Married real estate mogul secretly orchestrated a fertility scam using his wife's DNA without her knowledge and used the resulting child to boost his family man brand. Medical identity fraud suspected. Legal proceedings pending. Attached were redacted documents. Just enough to shake the glass. The next day, his name trended on local Twitter feeds. By that evening, the development firm dropped him. By the end of the week, investors started pulling out. One called me directly. "Is this true?" he asked, stunned. "Did he really use your?" "Yes," I said calmly. "And he tried to burn the DNA report after the baby was born." He hung up without another word. The project collapsed within days. His bank accounts froze shortly after, partially due to my legal petition, and partially because his financial records were now being subpoenaed. Step 2. Turn her against him. I knew Melanie was selfish, but she wasn't loyal. She would eat her own tongue before she'd let Noah take her down with him. So I sent her a copy of the NDA I claimed I was preparing, a complete fabrication, with one final message. "If he turns on you in court, I'll make sure you're in headlines next." We both know who signed that consent form. It wasn't a threat. It was a prediction. Sure enough, 2 days later, Melanie cracked. I got a call from my lawyer. "She's offered to testify." I blinked. "Already?" "She wants immunity. She says she'll turn over voice messages, texts, even clinic correspondence showing that Noah planned it all." Of course he did. Melanie was the pawn, willing, stupid, easily flattered, but not the mastermind. Noah was the one who engineered the deception, who convinced her it would be a gift, who signed the lab documents, arranged the embryo transfer under my name, and forged my consent. He used both of us. Only difference was, she still wanted him until the very end. Now, she wanted to save herself. Good. Let her. Step 3. Total erasure. Once I had her testimony, my lawyer moved quickly. Full emergency custody. Restraining orders. Motion to declare medical fraud. I filed everything within 48 hours. Noah showed up at my door 3 days later, desperate, disheveled, screaming my name. He banged on the front door until his hand bled. "Please, just talk to me. She was our child. I loved her. I still love her." I opened the window just a crack. "You don't love her," I said coldly. "You love the version of yourself you saw holding her." He broke down on the lawn. I didn't care. Let the neighbors watch. Let the world see. He didn't cry when he stole from me. He didn't cry when he used my DNA like a science project. Now he could cry for himself. I recorded the whole thing, just in case. He left an hour later. That was the last time I saw him in person. Step 4. The final cut. My court date came 2 months later. He showed up with a new lawyer, some hotshot who thought charisma could erase crime. I showed up with evidence. Not just documents. Recordings. Melanie's written statement. A medical ethics expert who confirmed that what Noah did could be interpreted as coercive reproductive abuse. The judge took one look at the evidence and granted me full legal and physical custody. No visitation without court review. An order of restitution for medical and legal expenses. A formal note on Noah's record for medical identity fraud, with investigation pending. His lawyer tried to argue. The judge shut him down with one line. "This is one of the most egregious violations of reproductive rights I've seen in years." I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd felt in months. Not happy, but free. A week later, I took our daughter to the park. She was just learning to walk, waddling with her arms out like tiny wings. I watched her chase bubbles under the sun, her curls bouncing in the wind. She was mine, born of my pain, raised in truth. I sat on the bench alone, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt clean, like the ash had finally washed off. Then, a shadow passed by me, a woman I didn't recognize at first, until she turned and I saw the sharp cheekbones, the hair pulled into a familiar high bun. Melanie. She looked older, worn, ashamed. She didn't say a word, just nodded. I don't forgive you, I said, voice low. I know, she whispered. And then she walked away. I didn't look back, because I wasn't the woman who used to chase people anymore. Now, I made them run. I thought it was over. The court had ruled. The house was mine. The baby was mine. Noah was a ghost. Melanie had disappeared into the shadows where she belonged. I had taken back my life, rebuilt it from scorched earth. I was healing. Until I got the letter. No return address. No name. Just my name, handwritten, shaky, almost as if the writer was afraid the ink would betray them. I sat at the kitchen table, heart slowing as I opened it. The letter read, You think you know the whole truth, but there's one more thing. One thing Noah didn't lie about. The baby isn't biologically his. But she might not be biologically yours either. My breath hitched. My vision blurred. No, that wasn't possible. I had the report, the 99.9999% maternity test. The lab verified it. I had the paperwork. I had her blood in my veins. I knew she was mine. Right? Hands trembling, I flipped the letter over. A second sheet. Check the sample ID number on your maternity test. Then check the date. It's not what you think. I ran upstairs to the box where I kept the documents, not in fear, not yet, just confusion. But when I pulled out the report, something hit me. The sample ID, the barcode. It wasn't mine. It was close, one digit off, easily missed. And the date? It was from 3 days before I submitted my sample. I had been given the wrong result. Or rather, I'd been given a result someone wanted me to see. Noah. He had switched the report. Maybe he had access to other reports from the same lab, maybe from a friend, a contact, or even Melanie herself. Maybe he wanted me to believe she was mine, so I'd keep raising her. So I wouldn't ask questions. So I wouldn't walk away. I fell into a chair, numb, hollow. What if? What if the baby I had loved, nursed, fought for, wasn't mine at all? What if that was the final betrayal? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I stared at my daughter's face, my baby's soft cheeks and sleepy smile, and tried to see a stranger. But I couldn't. I loved her. It didn't matter what a test said. But I still needed to know. I couldn't live in this limbo. Not again. So I submitted a fresh test. My DNA, her DNA. Straight to a second lab. No interference. No noise. No room for manipulation. It took 2 weeks. And when the results came, I opened them in silence. The first thing I looked for was the number. Sample ID 72A to 4MJBG7. Submission date. Correct date. And then I saw it. Probability of maternity. 0.00%. The room tilted. The words blurred. I read them again. And again. Each time, they said the same thing. She was not my biological child. I stared out the window in a trance. Trees waved gently in the wind. A dog barked down the street. Somewhere, someone laughed. But my world had gone still. So many nights I had whispered to her, "You are mine." But I was wrong. And now I needed to know. Whose child had I raised? I returned to the clinic, this time with a lawyer by my side and a subpoena. The staff panicked. They stalled. But eventually, a trembling nurse brought out a file. The truth was uglier than I imagined. There had been a mix-up, a horrifying, deliberate one. 3 embryos had been stored under my name during our first fertility attempts. But someone, Noah, had swapped my file with another woman's before the insemination. The woman? A donor. Anonymous. Not Melanie. Not me. Just a number in a system. An egg donor with no face, no voice. Noah had arranged everything. He had needed an heir, a child, a performance of fatherhood, a prop for the life he wanted. And to get it, he bypassed everything sacred, my body, my rights, even biology itself. He never wanted a family with me. He wanted the appearance of one. And I had been a vessel, a carefully managed illusion. Except one thing he hadn't planned for, that I would love her anyway. I thought I would fall apart. But something strange happened instead. I felt free. In a twisted way, knowing she wasn't biologically mine freed me from every cruel thread he tried to spin. She wasn't his either. She wasn't theirs. She was herself. And in my arms, she was mine. Not because of blood, but because I had kissed her forehead every night, nursed her through fevers, sung her lullabies when no one else was awake. I had stayed. That made me her mother. Nothing else mattered. But one final revenge still lingered in my chest like a hot coal. Noah thought he had outplayed me. Thought he could rewrite biology, forge signatures, manipulate DNA, and walk away with a story people would believe. But the truth? It was a weapon. And I was ready to use it. I gathered everything, the fake reports, the donor records, the switched IDs, the final lab result. Then I filed a civil suit. This time, for damages so large they'd bleed him dry. And more importantly, I contacted his father, the man who ran a conservative empire, a media tycoon obsessed with family values, a man who had disowned his other son for being gay, who had poured millions into building a reputation of perfect lineage and straight lines. I sent him a packet labeled, "Your granddaughter, the truth Noah hid from you." Inside was the full story. And less than a week later, Noah was cut off. His inheritance revoked. His company's stake dissolved. His father went public with a scathing statement. "We condemn all forms of reproductive fraud. We are heartbroken to learn of our son's actions. This was not a family built on truth, and we cannot stand behind it." Noah lost everything. Not because I screamed, but because I documented and delivered. The last time I saw him, it was by accident, at a grocery store. He looked older, smaller, like all the lies had crushed his bones from the inside. He froze when he saw me. Then, slowly, his eyes dropped to the toddler holding my hand. She was wearing her favorite boots, the sparkly ones she called her stomp shoes. She looked up at me and said, "Mama, can I get strawberries?" And I said, "Of course, baby." Noah didn't move, didn't speak. He just watched as we walked past him. Like a ghost outside the house he burned down with his own hands. Today, she's 5. She knows her story. Not the ugly version, not yet, but the real one. That she came into this world by mistake, but became loved on purpose. That family isn't always blood. Sometimes, it's a choice. And every single day, I choose her. I look at her and I don't see betrayal anymore. I see redemption. Noah tried to manufacture a child to fix his ego. But what he gave me instead was the greatest reason to become unstoppable. So if you ever find yourself betrayed so deeply it scrapes the soul, remember this. Sometimes the family you lose leaves room for the family you were meant to find. And sometimes the child you didn't expect becomes the one that saves your life.